If it's too late to prevent blossom end rot and you're already experiencing issues with it, you can stop into one of our stores and get the Bonide Rot Stop or the Fertilome Yield Booster. The Fertilome Yield Booster is a calcium-enriched plant food. It was designed to help correct the calcium deficiencies. It's pretty simple to use. You just mix 2 tablespoons per 1 gallon of water, and you can spray this on the plant's leaves, stems, and even the fruit. The Rot Stop can be used in a similar manner. We have this in both a concentrate and a ready-to-use spray. Here's some additional information on the Rot Stop. Feel free to pause this video if you want to read this any further as I show this. For both of these products, I recommend spraying these either very early in the morning or in the evening so that way you can avoid burning your plant. If you spray these on your plant during the heat of the day, the sun might cause damage to the plant. Even if you are using these products, you want to try to get the issue itself corrected. So please take the steps I mentioned before, get a soil test done, try to make sure you're watering and fertilizing your plants correctly, because you don't want to use these long term, because even if you're spraying these appropriately, you may still end up burning your plant if you're using this all season long. Now to end this video, I'm going to show you some tips from the spring when I planted my tomatoes so that you can set yourself up for success and get your plants going the right way so that hopefully moving forward in the future, you can prevent blossom end rot from the start. And remember, if you find yourself needing a soil test done, or if you need any of these products, soils, compost, tomato seeds, tomato plants, make sure you stop into one of our locations, and we will be happy to help you get the supplies that you need and answer any of your questions. To get the most out of your tomatoes, you can prune a lot of the unnecessary stems or branches, and then since this one is not quite ready to really be bearing fruit yet, I'm going to pluck off all of these little blossoms so it can focus on growing, and then it can start to blossom and produce fruit. It does not need to focus on this right now, it just needs to get big. If you see all these tiny little hairs on the tomato, they can actually turn into more roots. So when we plant the tomato, I'll show you, we're actually going to bury it pretty deep. I'm going to pull off some of these bottom leaves that we don't need, and then I'll bury it at least up to here, because once this touches soil and moisture, those little hairs are going to turn into more roots, which is really important because for tomatoes, they need a lot of phosphorus, which helps with root development. So the more roots you can get out of your plant, the more nutrients it can absorb, which is going to make your plant really healthy and give you the best tomatoes. Most tomato varieties grow really large and they can get pretty viney, so if you prune it throughout the season, it can focus more on growing the actual tomato instead of just growing more leaves. So that's another thing to keep in mind. When you do trim off some of these lower branches, you can actually plant them in the soil or in a little pot, but make sure you keep it very moist, and it may even turn into a new little plant. It's kind of like cloning your plant. I'm doing mine directly in the ground. Tomatoes do better in the ground. You can technically do them in containers, but you're going to want to find a variety that stays on the smaller side. And if you do them in a container, I would recommend at least a 5 to 10 gallon container. The larger the better for sure. And just do 1 plant per container, and make sure it stays well watered, because the containers dry out so much faster. And even if you have enough nutrients in the soil, if it's drying out, it's not going to absorb those nutrients, and then you're going to get blossom end rot, and then your tomatoes will be no good. So like I said earlier, I'm going to bury the tomatoes pretty deep so that way we can create more roots, and then they can absorb more of the nutrients. I'm going to mix some compost in here and the fertilizer, and then we'll cover it up. Don't need that one. And then just like all the other plants, make sure you water these really, really well, especially the first couple days, so that way they're not shocked. And then eventually those little hairs will become roots. And I do like to keep the label with it. That way I can remember which plant is which. You want to space your tomatoes about 1 to 2 feet apart. You don't want them right on top of each other, because then they're going to be competing for nutrients. And then in the summer when it's really humid, or if you get a lot of rain, if they're right on top of each other and they're not getting good airflow, they could get some diseases or some fungus. And that's not good. When you're plucking off these leaves that you don't need, you can even put it back into the soil and it'll become a compost for your plant.